Alaba Girivaradari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanashari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Shuddharashutta Shri Shri Maharaj Vangris A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Raja Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitai Gaur Brahmanandi All glories to the Samanavaris All glories to Shri Shri Guranga Gauranga O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Te pitan mukha niryatam Yasho lokamalapaham Hareranisham yatat padham Jayantas targatim yayu Te pitan mukha niryatam Yasho lokamalapaham Hareranisham yatat padam Jayantas tadgatim yayu Mothers, Te, the Prachetas, Api, also, Tat, of Narada, Mukha, from the mouth, Niryatam, gone forth, Yasha, glorification, Loka, of the world, Mala, sins, Apaham, destroying, Hari, of Lord Hari, Nishamya, having heard, Tat, of the Lord, Padam, feet, Jayanta, meditating upon, Tat Gatim, unto his abode, Yayuhu, went. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, hearing from Narada's mouth the glories of the Lord, which vanquished all the ill fortune in the world, the Prachetas also became attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Meditating on his lotus feet, they advanced to the ultimate destination. Purport, Here it is seen that by hearing the glories of the Lord from a realized devotee, the prachetas easily attain strong attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, meditating on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord at the end of their lives, they advance to the ultimate goal of Vishnu Loka. It is sure and certain that anyone who always hears the glories of the Lord and thinks of his lotus feet will reach the supreme destination, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 18:65. Man mana bhavamad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru mam evaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. Quote, always think of me and become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Then you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Agyantamirandasya Ganajana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bharevasha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Maitreya Muni was speaking about we were hearing about the importance of hearing from a pure devotee yesterday. And in today's verse, we're hearing the result of hearing from a pure devotee. Basically, one can remember Krishna. And by remembering Krishna, one can go back home, back to Godhead. So that's a very nice result of the process of hearing from a pure devotee. So it is mentioned like this in many places in the Bhagavatam. One nice scene is when Vidura is hearing from Maitreya Muni. He asks him various philosophical questions. And then Maitreya Muni gives a response to that very nicely. And then Vidura responds to that saying that my mind has entered into your words. And because my mind has entered into your words, I'm beginning to understand the futility of this material existence, which he was inquiring about that. And I'm confident that by rendering service to your lotus feet, I will be able to actually fully realize all that you have taught me and thus achieve the goal of life. And then after saying that, he makes let's say a principle statement. Yat sevaya bhagavata kutas dasya madhu dvishaha ratira so bhavetti vra padayor vyasanardana. He just said, I'm confident by serving your lotus feet I will be delivered. Then he quotes this verse, by rendering service to a Bhagavata, a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, then one very quickly develops rati for the Supreme Lord. Rati means bhava, or deep devotional attachment to the Supreme Lord. And by such devotional attachment, his service attachment in the material world is broke off. Padayor Vyasanardana means by service to the lotus feet of the Lord, then the material distresses are immediately vanquished. It's described just like when one rises from a bad dream, or even a good dream, a nightmare, let's say, then you somehow have a hazy remembrance of the dream, but now you're into your real life, so to speak. So similarly, when one, by service to a devotee of the Lord, then one develops devotional attachment to the Supreme Lord, same point being made here. And his previous experience of the material world is like the experience one has upon waking from a nightmare. Very hazy experience. All the stresses are gone, which is also mentioned here. Malapaham, Hare Nishamya Tatpadam. All the distresses of the material world are gone, having heard from Narada, and then one can easily think of the Supreme Lord. Because the obstacle in our remembrance of the Supreme Lord now is the server's attachment to the material world and the various distresses that come due to such attachment. It blocks our remembrance of the Supreme Lord. So that's one very nice verse. Another nice verse is there mentioned. I used to like to quote it a lot, but Tvam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavrita Hrit Saroja Ase Shrutekshita Pato Nanunata Pumsam Ya Diya Taruragaya Vibhavayanti Tat Ta Vapur Pranayase Sat Anugrahaya. This verse says that for one who's saturated, his life is saturated with the devotional service of the Lord. Paribhavita means his life is saturated with service to devotees, service to Krishna. Then the Lord sits on the lotus of his heart having been cleansed by such saturation in devotional service. Just like if you have to clean your house, you can't just. It is a very hard endeavor, right? When you first clean the house, you see all the stuff starts spreading out throughout the room. All the things come out of the dark crevices, and you feel very much discouraged in the beginning of cleaning the house. You wonder, why did I start this project in the first place? This is not a good idea. It was more clean before I started cleaning it. One thinks like that. But actually it is improving. As long as one remains engaged in the process of cleaning, then it will certainly improve. So similarly, one whose heart is saturated in a devotional service. And what is the path that he has taken in devotional service? It is mentioned, Ase, the Ase means he dwells, the Lord dwells in the heart. Shruta ikshita pato. He takes the path of seeing the Lord through his ears, or the path of capturing the Lord through hearing about the Lord. Taking that path, the path of hearing from the devotees of the Supreme Lord, then his life becomes saturated in the devotional service, and his heart becomes clean. The Supreme Lord comes and dwells there. And then to show mercy to such persons, Saranugrahaya, the Lord agrees to manifest himself in their minds in a particular sort of way. And in that way, the devotee is able to remember the Supreme Lord and go back home, back to Godhead. Matashmitir Gyanam Apohanam Cha. It is not possible to actually remember the Supreme Lord on one's strength. One actually needs the mercy of the Lord to, let's say, force himself in the mind as such, or place himself in the mind to remember the Supreme Lord. Just like in the Ishopanishad, the devotee is praying at the end, my dear Lord, I may not be able to think of you because due to my protracted activities and material sense gratification, then certainly at the time of death I will be thinking of sense gratification. I will not be able to think of you. Therefore, my dear Lord, please remember all that I've done for you. It is not a fruit of prayer. This is a prayer of dependence upon the Supreme Lord. He is feeling very much distressed that I will not be able to remember the Supreme Lord, and therefore be kind upon me, and you shall remember me. So then that is easily achieved by one who takes the Shruta Ikshitapato, or Panta, the path of hearing from the devotees. In this way, the Lord becomes captured by such a soul. That is also mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Gane prayasam udapashyanamanta eva jivanti samukaritam bhavadi yavartam stanesita shrutikatam tanuvan manobir ye prayaso ajita jito pesitesh trilokyam. The Supreme Lord is ajita, which means he cannot be conquered, but he is conquered by one type of person. In context of the verse, he's conquered by one type of person. Who is that person? First qualification of that person, Gane prayasam udapashya. He keeps away, far away, his speculative tendency, the tendency to ascertain the truth by the empirical method. He throws that completely far away. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions that the yogi who is advanced sees gold, pebbles, and stones all with an equal eye. So in Prabhupada's purport takes an interesting commentary comes in that purport if you read. I think it's like 6.8 Bhagavad Gita, where Prabhupada says that the mental speculators, although they consider their speculations as good as gold, the devotees think it no better than pebbles and stones. And Prabhupada makes that purport there. It's a very sweet purport. So generally, unfortunately, the tendency is to take our speculations to be gold. We think we right on the money, as the saying goes, right on the point. Particularly in living in an environment of other Vaishnavas and being, let's say, in a conditioned state or in the hospital. So the tendency to speculate is very prominent amongst the living entities, and we think our speculations to be like gold, and therefore it blocks our ability to hear. We cannot hear from him because we say, who is he? Who is he to tell me? He is also a conditioned soul. I'll hear from Srila Prabhupada, he's the only pure devotee left on the whole entire planet. No one else to hear from. Make sure we dedicate our hearing to Srila Prabhupada exclusively, because there are no other pure devotees on the planet. And when we see the other devotees, we think, oh, I see so many faults are there. And we find various points to reinforce our golden speculation upon such devotees and content. The reason I'm using the word devotees is because it's another verse I'm going to mention that mentions this particular element. So we take it to be gold, and as a result, we cannot hear anything. So long as one is putting faith in his own ability to ascertain the absolute truth, then there's no question of spiritual advancement. The way marked by the Mahajans, the great souls, is the Shruta Ikshita Pato, the path of hearing from the great souls. That is always mentioned. And the natural way of hearing means without technology. That's the natural way of hearing. If we didn't have, in Srimad Bhagavatam, I've read it, I'm reading a couple of times through, nowhere have I seen mention of MP3 recorder. After the sages left Narada, he busted out his MP3 player and began to hear their classes very dedicatedly. That's okay. He had to take whatever he heard and keep it in the heart. This was a natural understanding of the process of hearing. And now, because of the appearance of technology, this may be a personal feeling, I feel it encroaches on our understanding of the natural process of the devotional service, which is actually not dependent upon any external forces like technology, etc. I rather tend to say that technology, in one sense, in this way, has become a bane rather than a boon, because it disturbs the proper conceptions that are being propagated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So anyway, my point is that as a result of giving our speculative ideas a lot of golden considerations, then we are not able to hear anything. Either we're speculating about how to be happy in the material world, that's the prominent speculation, and when it comes to making spiritual advancement, which requires the path of hearing, we're speculating about the persons we're hearing from, generating more and more doubts about them and misgivings, as I was trying to express yesterday, and in that way not able to hear. In that way, no question of capturing the Supreme Lord. First qualification of the Lord is ajita. He cannot be conquered, but he's conquered by a certain individual. First qualification, he throws out the path of speculation. Second thing, namanta eva. He very humbly approaches the devotees. This is the most difficult thing. Even if one is thinking, I cannot do anything good for myself, it is very hard to accept someone else knows better. That's very difficult. Even if I can accept, I don't know, just like the agnostics, right? I don't know, no one knows. The agnostics say this thing. I don't know if there's a God, but no one knows if there's a God. You're such a nonsense fellow. If you don't know, then how do you know others would know? Even if they knew, how would you know it anyway? Because you don't know. That doesn't make any sense. It's like saying, I don't know chemistry. So then does that mean no one knows chemistry? And even if someone knows chemistry because you don't know, how do you know if he knows chemistry or not? So it's all foolishness. Agnosticism is just a clever way of saying I'm atheist, a clever way of saying I'll do what I want in material fields of sense gratification. A clever way of putting it. I'm not atheist, I'm agnostic. So similarly, my point is very difficult. I can admit I don't know. That's not too difficult. Just the amount of bewilderment that goes on in my mind is easy to understand that I don't know. Therefore, having to take from so many sources to try to figure it out, I obviously don't know. But to accept that someone else could be knowing what is best, that is the most difficult thing to accept. Namanta Eva, the devotee is very humble. He approaches the devotee and follows the path of hearing or seeing the Lord through the ears. Humility is the most important asset of the devotee, especially the devotee who is interested in progressing in Krishna consciousness. One must fix his behavior, mentality, and speech in such a way that he will remain humble. This most important thing is mentioned by Sanatana Goswami. For those who want to advance, he must accept the behavior, the speech, and the mentality that will fix him in a humble disposition. Because just like, for example, I remember Satchidananda Maharaj did this in the beginning of my Krishna consciousness. He asked everyone to cross their arms like this and hold their heads up like this. He wanted to make an experiment You can try it out. It's an interesting experiment. And now hold your head up like this. Although this is just a physical thing, but you can kind of feel the shift in attitude, isn't it? It's really amazing. Then he asks us to hold our hands like this, and then go like this. Although it's a physical thing, but you can feel the shift in attitude tremendously. I thought it was pretty amazing. I never forget. That was like my second or maybe third year in Christian consciousness, and I never forgot that little exercise Maharaj did. It's just it's all external, right? But it has tremendous impact on the consciousness, even such a small movement as that. So Sanatana Goswami says we must accept the behaviors, even the movements of the body, and the mentality and the speech, especially the speech, that will fix our disposition in humility. And this way, Namanta Eva can be fulfilled in the process of hearing. So, Jivanti, the devotee should understand that the hearing process is the only means of survival in this bewildering material world. This is indicated by the word Jivanti means survival, living. Jivanti means to live. So the verse says, Jivanti, the devotee understands that just as I cannot live without taking food, in a similar way, I cannot survive without Krishna Katha. I cannot survive without hearing from the devotees. Everything will be instantly finished. I will become malnourished, and I'll simply die. Like this, my devotional service will simply wither away and die. He understands this thing, Jivanti, Samukaritam Bhavide. So therefore, he dedicates his life to hearing from the Supreme Lord, from the devotees of the Supreme Lord, Mukaritam. Their mouths are always glorifying the Supreme Lord. He makes it his life to just hear, through and through. Then, even though there's no necessity to change one's status, his position, he just simply needs to have this understanding. Dedicating his life to hearing from devotees of the Supreme Lord, with humility, a deep sense of humility, a humility that must be cultured every single day, every single moment. Then he can hear. Then what is the effect? Ye prayaso ajitajito. Then the Lord, who's normally unconquered, becomes conquered by such a devotee. That means, through the process of hearing, he develops pure attraction to the Lord. Same thing mentioned here. Dayantas. The Lord chooses to situate himself in the mind of such a person, therefore he can think of the Lord. And by being able to think of the Lord, he returns back home, back to the Supreme Lord. Another verse is there, Sarunam samachitanam, sutaram akritatmanam, darshanam bhavet bhanda, pumso akshno savituryata. Just as when one is face to face with the sun, then there is no question of darkness for his eyes. So similarly, when one comes face to face with a sadhuna, his qualities are described. Samachitanam. He is equipoised in all situations. Neither he is disturbed when he is getting respect, which is very difficult. Neither he is disturbed when he is getting disrespect, which is also very difficult. He is samachitanam. He is completely equipoised. And suturam. His life is excessively, his consciousness is excessively, suturam means excessively absorbed in serving the Supreme Lord, serving his spiritual master, because that's what it means to serve the Supreme Lord under the guidance of acharyas, acharya parampara. Makritatmanam, and he is determined to serve the Lord in all situations. Narayana parasarvena kuttashana bibhiti swarga apavarganarikeshu apituyatra. Darshana, he sees heaven, hell, liberation, all with an equal eye. Why? Because he only sees his service. He doesn't see anything else. So he's equipoised. And Makritatmanam means he's very determined only to render service to the Supreme Lord, not to complain. We're always very determined to find out, where's the fault? I found it. Now my mind is satisfied. If we don't find the conditions, so if we don't find fault, then we can't be happy. And our mind is disturbed. I'm not seeing any faults. How can this be? Found one. That's a close call. One is thinking like this. No, the devotee is not determined to find fault. He's determined to serve Krishna, serve Vaishnavas, Hari Guru Vaishnavas. Then to that devotee, if one has darshan with that devotee, darshana no bhavet bhanda, his bondage is immediately severed from the material existence. He can think of the Supreme Lord. Just as when one is face to face with the sun, So similarly, when one is face to face with such a devotee, then immediately his bondage is severed. But it is mentioned there in the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that, and Srila Prabhupada also mentions it in his purport, if one commits the Nam Aparad, headed by Vaishnava Aparad, then it is like a blind man seeing the sun. Can blind man see the sun? Blind man cannot see the sun. So although one is getting such opportunity, if he commits offenses to Vaishnavas, this is the hard one to avoid, very difficult Nam Aparad to avoid, then there is no question of one's bondage being severed. So in this way, if we want to remember the Supreme Lord has to choose to appear within our mind. Otherwise, no hope of remembering the Supreme Lord. One devotee, Janaki Nath Prabhu, he had admitted in an open class that he had something had happened to him where he was hospitalized, and he wasn't sure if he was going to live or not. So he had his whole room surrounded by pictures of Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, and he had the Hare Krishna mantra going on the whole time and various things he was doing, and with the hope that I'll be able to remember the Supreme Lord at the time. That he admitted this in Mother Donna Kelly's class 2 years ago on this topic. And he said in the middle of doing that, he realized, I'm not going to be able to remember the Supreme Lord. The whole room was surrounded by paraphernalia and everything. And he just realized how difficult it was. When I was, this was maybe the first or second month of my Krishna consciousness, I had made a vow to chant 8 rounds. I was at the point of 8 rounds. This is maybe after the April, May, June. It was maybe the 3rd month of my Krishna consciousness. So I had made a vow, because Vaishnava Sevananda Prabhu at the time told me, it is like a relationship, you have to make some commitment to some amount. So I made a commitment to chant 8 rounds. I was hanging out with my friends until 11 o'clock at night, and I had 1 round chanted. So I was like, anyway, I'm not initiated, right? That's a nice excuse, and I'm just going to sleep. But then I felt bad because I was like, oh, it's a commitment. So I went to the lakefront to chant Hare Krishna. And I chanted the 8 rounds. It was very nice, so I continued to chant throughout the whole night. And it got to be like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was just watching the moon. I was by the lake here on the how you say, the turnpike that's there when you're going from Evanston to Chicago. And I was sitting on a particular rock, and I was chanting the whole night. So I said, I'll go to Mangalarti. I'd never been to Mangalarti before. I knew about the concept of Mangalarti. So I thought I may take a visit to the temple. I was walking up Lunch Street, and it was about 3:25 in the morning or so. And I walked past a particular point, just past the L station. And one, ghetto person, maybe not a very eloquent way of putting it, he said, put your hands up. So I was like, well, he's behind me. Maybe he's talking to someone else, So I continued walking, and I was chanting Hare Krishna the whole time. I continued walking, as if, yeah, he's talking to someone. He's not talking to me. And I got to Ashland and Lunt, and he was on a bicycle. So he rolled up in front of his bicycle, and he showed me his gun. And he started cursing me. I can't repeat his Sanskrit. But he started cursing me out. And when someone says, put your hand, so many things. And I was chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But I cannot remember Krishna. I was thinking, oh, my mother's going to be upset. She told me not to hang out in the nighttime like this. My brother's going to be sad because he likes me. My friends will be sad. Those are the thoughts that were coming in my mind. And my whole life, as they say, started flashing because I thought he might actually shoot me. I didn't have a donation, so usually they shoot you for that. And then, luckily, somehow or other, the thought came to my mind because I had read Science of Civilization, where Srila Prabhupada makes the point that if Krishna wants to protect you, then no one can kill you. And if Krishna wants to kill you, no one can protect you. That flashed in my mind, too. So I felt kind of peaceful, okay, I'm going to die, but if Krishna wants to, what can be done? And then I just kept chanting. And he was asking me questions. I couldn't even answer his question. I was just... So finally, he just got on his bike and just drove off, rolled off, whatever. And as soon as he left, I sprinted. I took off my shoes, and I was just gone because my shoes was slowing me down. I was just gone, and I ran up to the temple. I got up to the temple door, and Abhimanyu Prabhu, he was a very tall devotee, he was standing there at that time. I was coming to the temple for 3 months. I knocked on the door. He's sitting in the lobby. He said, can I help you? Prabhu, come on. I've been coming to the temple. He let me in finally. My point is that I cannot remember Krishna. Artificially, you cannot remember. Krishna must agree to appear in the mind. Then you can remember the Supreme Lord. But he will not agree to appear in the mind of one who's an operati. If he is an offender, he will never agree to appear in the mind of such a person. It is like he would never, like no one will agree to walk through fire because he will get burned. So one who commits aparat to a devotee of the Supreme Lord, his mind is like blazing hot fire. Supreme Lord would not come there. It is too hot, not cool, too hot. So therefore, most important thing in living in the association of devotees, Tandera Charanasevi Bhakta Sanivas Janame Janame Hoy E Abhilash. One must always maintain a strong desire to serve devotees and never leave the society of devotees, Bhakta Sanivas, life after life. Prabhupada says, I was hearing a lecture, we should not be concerned even about going back home, back to Godhead. Rather, we should be concerned about service to Vaishnavas, never desiring to leave the society of devotees. But if we shall have to do that, then we must give up our tendency for aparad. We must give up our tendency for speculating, which leads to aparad, and rather be more concerned about service to devotees than about finding out their various shortcomings. So that would be my discussion on this particular. Then the Lord will appear in the mind. Certainly you will go back home to the Supreme Lord because you can think of Him. That will be my discussion. Does anyone want to add to that or ask anything? Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your class. In regards to the point you were making at the beginning about how sometimes we think that Srila Prabhupada is the only pure devotee, and so I should just hear from him exclusively, and we may start having doubts which impede our hearing. So we've heard also that the nature of the spiritual disease is such that it blocks recognition of itself. So someone who may be having such doubts, he may not recognize that I'm going through this, and he may also not be willing to admit, because it may be a little difficult to admit that, hey, I'm having these doubts about devotees. So in such a situation, what is to be done for such a person?
He has to find out a physician. Just like if you are sick, you may want to deny that you are diseased. I am not diseased. Does that mean the disease goes away? Disease is there. So unless you're able to find out a qualified physician in whom you feel confidence, there are two things. Vishwasa, Vishwasi. Vishwasa means having full faith or full trust. Vishwasi means a trustworthy person. So one has to find out such a person, as that was the reply to my question yesterday. One has to find out such a person. Otherwise, disease is there, and it's definitely killing us. If the disease is not removed, then we will be, there is no question of, as a class, no question of Krishna conscious development. One may make a show of chanting Hare Krishna, as if if it's very solid. Chaitanya Bhagavatam mentions this point, that one may make show. Krishna is giving him a little mercy to continue chanting Hare Krishna. He may make show chanting Hare Krishna, but the Supreme Lord is never pleased with him because he commit aparad. So he has to find out a physician that he can, Vishwasi, one he can place his trust, and trustworthy person, and he must take the medicine from such a physician. If he shall not do, then the disease will capture his consciousness. If one continues chanting Hare Krishna, Nam Aparad, then the only result of such chanting is the upashakas are watered. This is mentioned by Mahaprabhu. Now the result of Nam Aparad chanting is upashakas are watered. Upashaka means the unwanted creepers, which will eventually end up curtailing the devotional creeper. Mahaprabhu mentions 6 particular ones that he points out as particularly pernicious. Nishidachar, misbehavior or behavior not conducive for advancement in Krishna consciousness. Kutinati, duplicity, diplomacy, fault-finding. This all falls in Kutinati platform. Jiva himsa, violence to other jivas. Even the hurtful words is violence. Labha puja pratishta. These upashakas will be watered by nam aparad, chanting. Then the only result is they choke the creeper of devotion, everything finished. In terms of our consciousness, even if we make an external show, everything will be finished. So we have to admit this first stage of disease. I admit I'm diseased fellow. Then I have to approach a qualified physician. Even if Prabhupada says, even if one should think, I don't see any pure devotees in society. Prabhupada says one should stick to the society. If he's having such doubts, he can go to the spiritual master directly to deal with such doubts and so on. But if he shall not do, then this only result. This is what mentioned in the Shastras. Yeah.
To add to what you were saying, every disease has symptoms, and even if the person is not willing to admit, the symptoms will show. They will manifest in one's speech, in one's aspirations, desires, behaviors, and so everyone else can see it. It's like having spinach stuck in our teeth. Only we can't see, everyone else can see it. Even when we are very humble and say, Hari Bol Prabhu, it's hanging. So it's like that.
Yeah, but then the pain of that is the devotees can see, but if they shall say anything, then you become a bigger aparati. So it's a very dangerous situation. Very dangerous situation. Chaitanya Bhagavat Vrindavan Das Thakur warns us that only one who has received the mercy of Krishna can recognize a devotee. If he's actually gotten the mercy, he can see the devotee. This is in context of the Bhrigu Muni pastime, and one made the tendency to find fault with Bhrigu Muni because he kicked the Supreme Lord in his chest. So there might be a tendency to say, how is that devotional? They're not a devotee at all. So in that context, he makes a statement in the Chaitanya Bhagavat in the Ancha Kanda of Chaitanya Bhagavat. He said, one, without understanding the position of the devotee, if he shall judge him or find fault with him, then he'll be destroyed. So then he says that one, there's an interesting point that I always appreciate it, will get caught in a very intricate situation, or how you say, what's the word? Precarious dilemma. The word sankat. Sankat means the dilemma. He'll be caught in the dilemma. What is the dilemma? Is he a devotee or is he not a devotee? There's the dilemma he gets caught in. And he's trying to figure out, should I accept him as a devotee? Or should I accept him as, maybe not as a non-devotee, but no one worth associating with? He gets caught in this dilemma. Vrindavan Das Thakur says this point. Then he says that if he shall make the wrong decision, then he will be destroyed. And if he shall make the right decision, then he'll be liberated. So it is a very dangerous situation. So what to do? Because it's very hard to recognize a devotee. Especially some devotees, even if you commit offense, the mind is an offense. Very hard to recognize the various activities of devotees may be very bewildering. So then Vrindavan Das Thakur offers a solution after saying this. He said, my solution is that you should be humble with all. And then by the mercy of Krishna, he'll give you the divya buddhi, the transcendental intelligence to understand what is what. And in that way, not make the wrong decision and be eliminated from the devotional service of the Lord. So this message of humility is again highlighted for our saving grace for our very difficult situation. So it is very important to cultivate the spirit. We can get into the intricacies of, what does it mean to be humble? And, I have this type of responsible service. That we can get in that, those are various details. But we can always understand within ourselves what is happening to our mentality. So as Sanatana Goswami says, we should accept the behavior, mentality, and speech what will fix us in that proper spirit. In that way, there's some hope. Is there anything else anyone wants to add or inquire about? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. You mentioned developing rati or attachment for a devotee, and that being a necessary step in, you mentioned rati. Was it?
Rati, I was mentioning it in relationship to the Supreme Lord, because that's what the verse says. By service to a devotee, that sevaya bhagavata. Then ratiro sobhaveti, where one develops rati for the Supreme Lord. Attachment to the Supreme Lord. He can think of the Supreme Lord with devotion. And that way all his distresses are removed by service to a devotee. That was a particular point that
I was wondering if you could describe this in a little bit more detail.
Describe what?
The person who has that attachment or affection and his mentality.
Well, for one who has rati in the nectar devotion, it mentions 9 aspects of which one may be able to recognize such a devotee. He doesn't waste time. Manya shunyata, he's not puffed up. Extremely humble. Shantir, extremely tolerant and forgiving. Ashabandha, hope against hope that he will attain the lotus feet of Krishna. Attachment to chanting the holy names of Krishna. Attraction and eagerness to reside in the holy dhams of Krishna. Virakti, complete detachment from matter. Like this, 9 qualities are mentioned that describes the devotee with rati or bhava. So just on the first point of yakta kalatvam, he doesn't waste even a moment of time. We can understand that we don't have bhava. Just in case there is any doubt about that, that should easily quote. And then manya shunyata point also, and also we're not at all forgiving. Basically all the points. Well, we obviously don't. So that's the mention in the nectar devotion for one who has that type of attraction to the Supreme Lord. But the attraction is born of service to devotees. Fixed service mentality. Not externally serving, but in the mind speculating. Then that service will bring about such a manifestation, step by step. When these verses come in the Bhagavatam, they don't go through all the steps and all the places, because Sutta Goswami has already mentioned the steps in the outset of the Bhagavatam. How using hearing as representative of all the processes of devotional service. In chapter 2, he describes the step-by-step development of how hearing or other processes of devotional service brings about such attachment to the Supreme Lord. So in those verses where it's not delineated, but it's because it's already been delineated previously. So through service one develops Shraddha. Through Shraddha one can hear. That is mentioned in 1.2.16. One has to, first of all, render service. By continuous service, faith develops. By faith, one can hear. And Narada Muni's pastime is the case example of this development. By serving the Bhaktivedantas, he developed Shraddha. Oh, they're having so much a taste. We're talking about what's going on here. They're like totally ecstatic. They're like really into it. I wonder what it is they're into. He developed some faith, and then he got a chance to hear from them with faith, with eagerness. Then like this type of stage of devotional service evolves. Is there anything else anyone wants to say? Hare Krishna.
When you first started, or early in your discussion, you mentioned speculation and agnosticism, and I was thinking about what arose in me is the thought of, as a person, how would I feel about someone speculating about me and who I am, or doubting whether I'm whatever, and I thought, so much more so for the Lord. And to go to the Lord, if I want to know about the Lord, to go to the Lord, or to go to someone who knows the Lord. I struggled with that, and I'm probably still struggling with it. How do I approach the Lord? How do I listen to the Lord? You're talking about hearing, and
how do I listen to the Lord?
Yeah,
that's the punchline.
I'm thinking of the Shastras and Sutras, but how do I gain that skill, or have any sense of, am I listening, or am I still speculating?
Yeah, speculating, definitely. The Chaitanya Charitamrita simply describes that the conditioned soul is not able to gain direct perception of the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental. Krishna has mentioned this point in Bhagavad Gita also. Therefore, Krishna mercifully manifests a constituent of himself, that is Sri Guru. And one sees, when he sees the spiritual master, he doesn't just see a jiva that is like very nice, he got a little bit of knowledge. Rather, he sees the delegation of Krishna is embodied in my spiritual master. And therefore, he takes it as if Krishna was speaking to him directly. That is the faith of a bona fide disciple that is required. Otherwise, it will be totally speculation. We know how bound up we are. Just what are your dreams? What are your thoughts? Where is it going to? We're totally bound. So there's hardly any question of thinking the Supreme Lord, out of all the conditioned souls, even though I'm so, messed up, out of all, I was the one selected for the Supreme Lord to directly discuss with. Even if that were the case, the devotee would never reveal that. Rather, he follows the Shuta Ikshitapato, the path of hearing from the Mahajans. That faith is there in hearing from devotees, that is how the Supreme Lord. I had the experience when I'm in the discussion, when I'm sitting on the mountain of my pride. Oh, so many shlokas were not discussed today, like that. I don't hear the Supreme Lord. But when I am very much struggling, and I request the Supreme Lord to speak to me, then I notice that when I hear that discussion, so many things become addressed magically, because of just a change of attitude. So we should not think that the Supreme Lord is, we know who we are. I don't think we have to delineate the details of that. Rather, we should have placed our faith in the devotees of the Supreme Lord. Sometimes we're under the illusion that I can protect myself from being cheated, not understanding that actually only the Supreme Lord can give protection. And for most of us, before coming to the Krishna consciousness movement, we were gliding down to hell. Like, for most of the types of things we were doing, many of us, there was no question hell was definitely waiting for us. And, going to hell in a hay basket, what's that the saying like that? In a flower basket, whatever. A steel basket, iron basket, it's hell after all. So that was our position. And somehow other, by the intervention of a devotee, then we're on the path back home, back to Godhead. So it is quite ridiculous to think that we will be able to, now I'm in the associate, now I need to protect myself. And always a suspicious mind. Now, how you will protect yourself? You're anyway gliding down to hell. Anyway you were going to hell, definitely going to hell. No doubt about it. And somehow the devotees have intervened in my life. So even if I shall be cheated, at least I'm being cheated by a devotee. Because anyway, I would cheat myself out of anything auspicious. Therefore, I'm being rescued. Why should I have maintained suspicious mind? Always speculating. Rather, anyway, you'll not be able to protect yourself also. Even with all the speculation we will do to protect ourselves, we will be victim of a non-devotee, cheating guru. All these things, we will become victim. Only if the Supreme Lord gives protection, we will be protected. Having that faith, a devotee can easily associate with devotees. Knowing that the Supreme Lord has to protect me, I cannot protect myself. Of course, he self-examines. He makes sure he's properly educated in Krishna consciousness so that he's not just totally like an illusion. It's not a sentimental thing. He wants it to be substantial. But he is able to simply associate because he knows the Supreme Lord is my only protection. Even if I'm in a room of cheating sadhus, dharmadwajis, and only one pure devotee is there, how you would tell amongst them, how you would tell who is who? Everyone looks pretty good, right? How you would tell? If the Supreme Lord is my protector, he will put me in association with the properly situated devotee. Even if it's a room of thousands of cheaters, and only one pure person is there, and I am wanting that, Krishna knows my desire, then somehow or other you will stumble into that association. Devotee with that confidence in Krishna, he is able to freely associate with devotees. Otherwise, thinking I will protect myself, I will get protection, always maintaining suspicious mind. Then I'm thinking I have to make sure I'm hearing the Supreme Lord. How is it possible? So we have to have faith in Krishna. We should be sincere. What is it that you want in Krishna consciousness? Supreme Lord is our protector. And he will certainly put us in the right sangha. And whatever that we shall be hearing, it is good for us, according to our inner necessity. Sometimes we hear about these high things, And we think, oh, I need a Rupa Goswami, otherwise I will not be rescued from the material existence. But our inner necessity is just how to give up illicit sex. The inner necessity is here, and we're thinking about, trying to get someone that's, so-called getting someone way up here. But what is your inner necessity? Inner necessity is this, a new sadhaka would probably do, and to deliver us, So with this simple mind, devotee able to easily associate, knowing Supreme Lord is my protector. If I am having sincere desire, He is my protector. Why I should maintain suspicious mind, thinking I can protect myself? It is not at all possible. With this confidence, he hears in the song of devotees, and he's a happy devotee. But those who have suspicious mind, like Krishna says, they are doubtful, they are not happy in this life, they are not happy in the next life also. So this is most important. And this is one thing I don't say I realized it, but a few months ago it came to me like a realization or an epiphany that Supreme Lord is actually my protector. I cannot protect myself. Therefore, if I'm sincere and I continue to try to nourish my sincerity, then certainly the Supreme Lord will make all arrangement for me. I cannot make arrangement for myself. Okay? Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.